Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. And welcome, Christina Kaye, all the way from Kentucky. Thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm a little cold, but the view is beautiful. We just got hit with a snowstorm. Whenever this is being listened to, it's being recorded in the middle of a snowstorm.
Okay.
So I'm hunkered down, but I'm doing well.
Well, that's awesome. Happy to hear that. And welcome to the show. We're excited to learn more about you and your background and some of the great work that you're doing. But let me take just a second and I'll give our audience some context as to why we've invited you on the show. So Christina Kaye works with female entrepreneurs through the process of writing and publishing books on their areas of expertise. She specializes in helping them reach their target audience and effectively market their books. Not only does she help them write it and publish it, but she herself is a writer. She's an award-winning author of Like Father, Like Daughter, which is book one of the Flesh and Blood trilogy. I can't even say it.
Yeah, you got
trilogy. Oh my God. How am I starting out this morning?
your faces. You're doing just great. Keep going.
My words are not mixing. Okay. Forgive me, everyone. And 6 other suspense novels. So she's a suspense writer, which we're going to get into that a little bit.
Cool.
And she's also learned in her 15-year career the importance of the publishing industry and how to navigate that. And so she really does work with those who are aspiring authors, existing authors, to help them, to write, create, and publish those books. So Christina, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. I can't believe trilogy wouldn't come out of my mouth.
Hey, it's okay. Like you said, we're just having coffee and hanging out.
Exactly. Well, thank you for your patience. So let's jump in and maybe give the audience some context as to, why publishing, why writing, like what led you down this path?
Oh gosh, it's so funny because a lot of authors that you talk to, maybe more fiction authors, I think, but a lot of authors that you talk to will say something like, I've wanted to be an author my whole life. It wasn't my story. Like I didn't. Now I will say once I discovered that was my path and my journey in my early 30s, when I did discover that, it all made sense and it all clicked because growing up, I looked back and realized I was always writing stories and creating and in school, I thrived when I had to write an essay, whereas math, forget it, So it all made sense once it all clicked. But the way that I got into publishing in the book world and everything was by happenstance. My first career, I worked in the legal profession. And I wrote an article for a major magazine for attorneys. I think it was Super Lawyers. I can't remember the title, but I wrote this article about what it's like to work with top rank attorneys or something as a paralegal. I was a litigation and trial paralegal. And this was before the term viral was a thing, but it did very well. And I started getting these hundreds and hundreds of comments saying, you need to write a book. Oh my gosh, write a book. And eventually it was like, I guess I'll write a book. And the rest is history. So that's how I got into the book publishing world. Many
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So writing and publishing, 2 very different things. Yeah. So maybe talk about that a little bit, because it's fascinating. I have 2 really good friends who just wrote books and they're walking through this process right now.
And they need to call me.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
no, I love that question because I actually part of the foundation of what I share, not just with my clients, but on social media, on podcasts, is there are 2 parts to being an author. There's actually
exactly
2 facets, the book and the business. And both of them, if you want either a career as a fiction author or to have that supplemental income revenue stream as a business entrepreneur, etc., either way, you can't be successful in either avenue unless you have both parts put together, the book So in the book half of it, you have to write a kick-ass book. Can I say kick-ass? You have to write you have to write an amazing book, the best you possibly can, and don't rush the process and don't just type something together. So write a great book. That's the first book side. The business side is everything else. It's the marketing, it's the expenses and the spreadsheets and the, running the business of being a publisher. So that's the difference and the importance of having both of those elements. And especially in self-publishing, you have to manage both.
Yeah.
So there's not that there are many benefits, in my opinion, to traditional publishing anymore, but that's one thing to remember if you're going to self-publish is you've got to be on your game with both.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm sure, our audience listening, we probably have a lot of aspiring authors. It seems to be a hot market right now. I mean, yeah, like I know, like I was mentioning, 2 of my close friends have just written books, very different books, one nonfiction, one fiction. So for those aspiring audience or aspiring authors, what would be like maybe a couple of things that you would share with them to help them even get started? Like what, because that's sometimes the hardest part, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, you may
taking that first step and like, okay,
yes, exactly.
Now I know I want to write this book or books. What next, right?
Yeah.
So the best few tips, because obviously there's so much,
yes.
but I think when I get approached at conventions or speaking engagements or anybody asks me this, the best advice I have is a few quick hot tips. And that's 1, do not rush. See, you and I both can't speak properly.
Yeah. There's a gremlin in our system today.
But do not rush any step of that journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So it is tempting as all get out to have an idea, fiction or non, and okay, I'm going to type it up and I'm going to type it up. Okay, book's done. And then you're like you just said, like, now what? So don't rush the process. Spend time, fiction or otherwise, and know and develop your story and make sure you're researching. And I don't mean research facts and statistics. I mean research, like if you're a female entrepreneur and you're going to write a book on mental health of some kind. I'm not talking about writing research for the stats. You already have those. I'm talking about what does my audience want in a book? How do I write a book, a self-help book? So and then if you're writing fiction, there's a lot more research involved, as in I got to figure out how to develop my characters and build my world. So that's the first thing. Don't rush it, develop it, research, take your time. The other biggest hot tip I have is, and it kind of goes in conjunction with that, is where so many self-published authors go way off the rails and they end up with negative results, or you still kind of hear that stigma of indie authors not doing well, is because A, they rush it, B, they don't spend minimum 90 days growing their fan base and their reader following before they launch. That's the biggest thing I can tell you, because in the very beginning, if you write your book and plunk it out, get it typed up, okay, you got a 60,000, 80,000 word manuscript, and then even if you edit it, format it, get it out, ready to go, crickets, because you have to build your audience. So that's the 2 big early tips that I would give is do your research, get prepared, don't rush it, get in there, and then write the book if you haven't already. And then the other is, as you're writing, start growing your reader following and start working toward that end, because that is how you're going to succeed in self-publishing. That's the secret sauce. That is the be-all, end-all piece of advice.
Yeah.
So that's the quickest way to give you those, because there's so many things that need to be done. But I think that's where I would start.
Okay. Those are 2 excellent suggestions. So audience, you heard that. If you're sitting out there and you're going, ooh, how do I get started? What do I do? One is just take the step. Don't rush it. And as you're doing it, build your fan base. And it's funny you say that, because my one friend who she's already published and out there, but I kept saying to her, like, it's how do we get more eyes on your book, right? And she's written a great book. It's called The Immortal Secret, and it takes you on this incredible venture. Like you're
Tina's good.
oh, it's fantastic. Like it's so good. But I keep saying to her, like, you just got to get more eyes on it, right? And that's exactly what you're saying. And so, and there's lots of different ways to do
Yeah,
that.
there's a
So,
lot that goes into it. But the
yeah,
key is starting as early as possible.
exactly. And also just get your book started. Like
Mhm.
really start to look at it and how do you want to shape that? So
Mhm.
speaking of that, like you have your own award-winning trilogy.
Mhm.
So, let's talk a little bit about what was the inspiration for writing Like Father, Like Daughter. And, I mean, you've taken on like
Yeah.
6.
Well,
That's a
8 now. I should have
well, 8
updated my
now.
bio, but
Okay.
8 now. But yeah, several.
Okay. So let's jump into that. So why suspense and what's inspired you to go that
Yeah.
route?
The reason I cracked up when you asked that question was not laughing at you, by the way. I was laughing at, I love this question because I love getting to tell this story. So two answers to that one too. The inspiration behind just writing suspense and crime and thrillers, it really boils down to just my personal interest and I'm a true crime. What is wrong with us? Yeah, I'm a
True
true
crime.
crime fanatic. I devour documentaries, docuseries. If it's serial
Mm,
killer, if it's whatever, I love it. I just devour it. I've got all the stuff up here. So, and actually, that's a tip your followers, your listeners could take from this. We weren't talking
okay.
tips, but here's one. Put a pin in this. Write what you love, not what you
Mm,
know. People say,
mhm,
write what you know. That's not really true. Write what
mhm.
you love. Because at the end of the day, if you write to market, which is where you say when you hear that term, it means, hey, dark romantic fantasy is really hot right now. I'm going to write that. But that's not really what you even read or love.
Mm,
Not only will it not be the best book it could possibly be, your readers will know. They'll know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why
Great
I
point.
wrote crime and suspense, because that's what I know and love. It just seemed natural. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't tinker with other things like historical women's fiction. I have 3 manuscripts for that, and a dystopian. But at the end of the day, it was what I really love. So that's why that genre.
Okay, awesome. And that's a great point that you bring up because when I was talking about my friend who just did The Immortal Secret, like her background is actually corporate communications and business writing. And so
Mhm.
this was like a completely different genre and because she loved
Right.
like all the places
But
that
she
she
loved it.
included.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. Great tip.
And the readers are going to love it too, because when your heart is poured into your book, and that's one of my little viral quotes I had go on around last year was something, I can't remember my own quote, but it's something about how we as authors put a little piece of ourselves in everything that
Mm,
we write, and we leave. It's like leaving an imprint. Whether it's a character that resembles someone in our real life, or whether it's a home, a setting that reminds us of home, or even a line of fiction that we wouldn't say in real life or couldn't say in
mm,
real life, we are leaving subconsciously or consciously, we're putting ourselves into our books. Point being, readers can tell. If
yeah.
we're just writing to market and formulaic fiction, odds are they're not going to love it either.
Yeah.
But anyway, to answer the second part of that question before I go off the rails, which I tend to do,
No, you're doing great.
it's shiny object syndrome, squirrel. But why that series? Why my first
Yeah.
series? You asked. Like Father, Like Daughter is book 1 in a 3-part series, a trilogy, which we both are having trouble saying now. And it's largely about a woman who, in the first book, is accused of murdering her husband, because not only are the facts there, she wakes up in the bed and he's not alive anymore, but her father is an infamous serial killer who's in prison for killing 9 women. So when that happens, everybody, including the police, are like, well, sure you did it. Your dad's a serial killer. Hence, Like Father, Like Daughter. But
Mm.
the
There's a
inspiration for that,
twist.
there's a twist. I'm not going to give that away. But
Yes.
the inspiration behind that book and that series is in real life, because I was going through a divorce at the time.
Mhm.
And as we do, as I just was even mentioning, we put ourselves in our stories,
Mhm.
and I needed a way to just get it out. I was so angry. I was so upset. My life had gone from white picket fence to on the run in like 5 seconds. So it was a way of telling my story, but I didn't want to
Mm.
write a memoir, and I didn't want to be true about it. So
Yeah.
some of the things, and I won't say what, some of the things in there are very much mirroring things that I went through. And it's a way of kind of calling out people without actually calling out people legally. So that's
Okay.
my story. That's how that book.
Wow. 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 Like, okay, I have to pick up the book. And I don't read. I don't normally read suspense because,
Hey, I didn't even intend to pimp my books, but that must have been a pretty decent way to sell them. So
yeah, like, I mean, seriously, like, because I like watching some true
Mhm.
crime type stuff. Like, I'll watch Criminal Minds,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. But it disturbs me. So I do tend to surround myself with positive, uplifting,
Yeah.
right?
I have to balance it. Let's be clear.
Oh, I'm sure.
I
I'm
have to balance
sure.
it. And my daughter, my youngest daughter, just turned 25, and she gives me all kinds of hell about my true crime addiction. She's like, I don't see how you're this bright, shiny, upbeat person when you live in this dark world. But I don't. I do balance it with a lot of happiness. But I'm like, my mother is like that too. Does not understand it. She's like, it's too disturbing.
Mm.
She can't do it either. So
Well, so I love what you just said there because that applies in so many aspects of life.
yeah,
And we often think balance is 50-50, and it's not 50-50.
yeah.
It's about finding what works for you. And so maybe share one way that you do balance it for you.
For me, I have to. It's weird in a logistical way. The way I balance it is I only watch my true crime stuff and devour my true crime stuff. And this is going to sound so weird, but at night it's my outlet. It's how I it's how I decompress, I guess. So I don't sit around all day thinking. In the daytime, I am focused on my business and my brain and my passion and what I love doing.
Mhm.
And that is more upbeat and fun and
Mhm.
positive. So I just make sure that, like I said, if I use that true crime and the darkness and where my brain goes when I write books, and I kind of separate and segment that out and only go to it when it comes to watching my true crime at night
Right.
and or writing a book, then everything else in my life I try to keep as light, as positive, as fun, as upbeat as I possibly can, or I would be in a very dark place right now with
Yeah.
everything I've been through. So
Yeah.
it is it
Well,
is it is hard.
well, and that's why I asked the question because just for our audience's
Mhm.
sake, like that's true whether it's work, maybe work's
Yeah.
really draining and hard on you.
Yeah.
So it's like how do you find other things in your life to tip that scale and ensure that you're getting the positive and the higher vibration that you're talking about? And so it sounds
Yeah.
like you're doing a great job with
Well,
that.
that all boils down, in my opinion, to tip the scales and balance. Like you said, it's not really 50-50, but to balance somewhat is whatever that darkness is, whatever the hard stuff is, whatever the stress or whatever it is,
Mm,
to find how do I find what will balance that is you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, it boils down to what makes me happy, what
yeah,
is my passion, and then you pursue that with every fiber of your being.
yeah,
So
yeah. Awesome, awesome. So, okay, we talked a few minutes ago about like it seems like everybody's writing a book.
yeah.
So, when you think about the people that you're working with,
Mhm.
what are the themes that you're seeing right now in the publishing industry? Like, what are the big themes that keep popping up from um, I would say an expression, like how we are expressing ourselves.
Are we talking, just so I can clarify, are we talking
Right.
like the genres of books?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay, gotcha. So that again, it's kind of twofold because we've got fiction and nonfiction when we refer to books, and your audience is probably equally divided in that regard. But with fiction, absolutely hands down, the theme, the what's hot, what's trending is all about two things that actually converge, which is romantic fantasy or fantasy, dark fantasy, epic fantasy. Like it sounds like maybe that your friend is writing maybe fantasy or something.
It's a little bit. It has a little bit of fantasy.
Immortal Secrets, it kind of sounds like that. So,
Yeah.
but fantasy and romance. And they've always been popular, but now more than ever, especially anything dark. Like we got, not to get back to the dark stuff, but that dark romantic fantasy is just hot right now.
Wow.
So I don't know if I haven't read them. They're not my cup of tea, but The Accord of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas.
No.
Yeah, it's a series of books by Sarah J. Maas, traditionally published, but they are still hot a year or two later on TikTok. And so everybody now is scrambling to kind of fill that void.
Catch up.
Yeah. So that's the thing. With fiction, it's all about the heat, the hot, the dark, the
steamy. Okay. Got it.
People coined a new phrase, romantasy, which is romantic fantasy. So that's that. In the nonfiction realm, where a lot of your listeners are going to fall because they're business owners, speakers, coaches, whatever, that is going to be about empowerment. That's where what we're seeing in a theme there is all about, especially female empowerment. Because, there was a Me Too movement 5-10 years ago, and that really kicked off almost a new women's lib movement. And so now, especially when it comes to women, watching them, we're beyond breaking the glass ceiling at this point. We're building a new house with a new ceiling. It's that whole new thing. So that's what I see in the nonfiction realm, is especially with women entrepreneurs is what's the woman? Glennon Doyle. She is an amazing, groundbreaking, ceiling shattering author. I think her biggest book is called Untamed.
Okay. Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah. So things like that. That's what's trending in the nonfiction world. That's what's really hot there.
Okay. Awesome. So you brought up a great point there when you were talking about everybody's kind of gotten on to the bandwagon, so to speak, like this dark romance fantasy or empowerment, which Women in Leadership Empowered, name of my company. I've been on that for a long time.
Hey, that's true. I didn't realize that. But if you think about it, you could even see a parallel between the fiction and the nonfiction. It still boils down to women owning themselves. And
100%.
I didn't even think about that till just now, but that's true.
100%. So now, where was I going with that? Sorry. Because no, I love the conversation. So because there's so much happening now, how do you differentiate? How do you get noticed when there's so much of whichever fiction, nonfiction in a particular genre? How do you get noticed out in this big world we have?
I want to say easy, but it's not really easy. It's an easy answer.
Okay.
Brand identity. And that applies, again, equally to now, if you're an entrepreneur, speaker, coach, and you're writing a nonfiction book, a memoir, a self-help, you should hopefully already have established some kind of brand.
Yes.
So that's going to be a little bit easier for nonfiction authors because they're most likely, by the time they write a book, they have a platform, they have a brand.
Right.
But the tip I'm going to give will need to be applied to both. But with fiction authors, they struggle a lot with that because how do I build a brand around the fact that I write romantasy or whatever? It's not so much, yes, it's the aesthetics. It's the colors that you choose for your brand. It's the fonts. It's all that. Your slogan, your tagline. Sure, that's all part of it. But that's the face. That's like the glitter that goes around it. What really is going to help you connect, it all boils down to connectivity with your brand.
Okay.
And by that, what I mean is, gone are the days of using a logo for your avatar on your profiles. Stop that. That's just old. Gone are the days of using anything as an avatar other than your pretty face. You have to be able to be face forward no matter what kind of author you are and put yourself out there. And that's not easy for many authors, especially fiction authors. It is not easy. We are by nature kind of introverted, used to hiding behind the computer. But that
a book. That's your escape. Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to go on TikTok and dance like a fool, like I do. You don't have to do that. But it is about being recognizable, relatable, and connectable.
Yep.
able to be connected to. That's what's important. So that's why we want to use our own profile face. We want to establish a brand, and your brand, the point I'm trying to make, is about more than the colors and the fonts and the aesthetics.
Yeah.
It's about who is Christina Kaye, author. What's her vibe? What's her jam? How does she relay her information in her books and in her content? And if you do that, then that's how you stand out from all the other authors, is that you are not just another author. Yeah. You're Christina Kaye, that quirky Southern drawl, talks to
high energy.
Yeah, that's my brand. And that's how I stand out. And I'm just being me, but that's,
but who better to be?
Huh?
Who better to be?
Right. And one more point on that. Be your unique, authentic self. Don't make something up, because here's the thing: not everyone's gonna like you. Yeah. I'm too much for a lot of people, and that's okay, because that's not my people, really. At the end of the day, so just be your unique, authentic self. Maybe amplify it a little bit so that you can be that brand, but be unique to yourself, and the people who are truly going to be your following, your audience, your people, they'll find you.
I love that. And it's so funny, Christina, because that is an actual workshop that I'm doing next week on your, more from a personal brand. Yeah. I'm not a publisher, not an author or writer, but that is so important no matter what business you're in, right? So those tips you just gave are fantastic, because you're absolutely right. It's how are you showing up in the world, and what do you want the world to remember or say about you when you're not in the room?
Yes. Yeah. I always say that your profile, your bio, your brand, it should be a magnet that's working actively even when you're asleep.
Exactly.
So if you do it right and your brand is out there after even just a few months of putting out content, writing books, doing whatever it is you're doing, your people will know. And it doesn't have to be, obviously on TikTok, people know my face when they see it. But even on Instagram, when you go through the feed, by now, hopefully, if someone sees a post, even a static post, they should instantly know, that's Vicki. I know that, and that's because it needs to be attracting people, because we can't be on not even I can be on 24/7. I need sleep. We all need sleep.
Yeah, 100%. Wow, those are really great tips. So, I'm just watching our time here.
I know.
Maybe if you wouldn't mind, maybe share one or two of the most favorite projects you've ever worked on, because you've been doing this a long time now. So what are one or two of those, and why? Like, what makes them stand out for you compared to the others?
Well, it's so funny that you asked that, because yes, I've been doing this for many, many years, and I have 155 successful clients, and counting, under my roster, and it's on my website where you can find my client success story page.
Nice.
But so it's so hard to pick. It's like, I'm sitting here thinking, it's like asking a mother to choose between her.
I know. I know. Unfair question.
And we're all like, none of them ever.
You don't have to name a name. You don't have to name a name. You could just talk about the project in general.
No. I'm just saying, I am going to, but it's just a tough one, because it's like, I love them all. And right now, actually, I have 2 or 3 clients. Their books are going to just blow everybody's minds, and I can't wait. But I can't get that information out yet. So recently, the most recent one that stands out in my mind is a fiction book. I'll try to give you 2 if I'll be quick about it.
No, you're good.
Fiction and 1 for nonfiction. For fiction, her name is Sarah Cooley, with an E, Sarah Cooley, E-Y. And she wrote this amazing book. And when she came to me, all she had was a nugget of an idea. She was like, I love the show Supernatural, and I want to write a book about Wendigos, which are those body snatcher things.
Yeah.
That live in the forest, and they have red glowing eyes. She said, I just keep seeing this image of a dark forest and these red glowing eyes in the forest. And that's all she had.
Okay.
We wrote the book, and it's called The Bone Forest, and it went viral on TikTok in summer of 2024 or 3. I can't remember. But in the summer recently, it just did really well on TikTok. And so she became a bestseller. It's just a really great read. So The
Wow.
Bone Forest by Sarah Cooley is definitely one of my pinnacle, moments as a coach. I love that. And then from a nonfiction perspective, I'm going to have to call out, because she's almost done and her launch is already announced, I am going to use a current client.
Okay.
It is called When He Speaks, and it's Susie O'Neill, and it's coming out around Easter. And
Okay.
it is a Christian book. It's about prayer, how to speak to God, how to hear God, whatever. So that's not going to be everybody's jam. But the reason I picked that is because there's still something to take away from that as far as writing a book and everything. She had an idea, and it was nonfiction, and she wanted to share her thing that she discovered, which is what we do when we write nonfiction. I've discovered a way to do this. And she wrote it. She's not an expert on prayer. Who is? Besides God himself, So, but she wanted to share her unique look and take on, what? We can hear him and we can't. And so that's going to be a great book that comes out. And I think the reason that stands out to mind as such a great example of a story and a book I've worked on is because A, she's been an amazing client to work with so far. And B, she just, she did it right. She had an idea. She accepted the fact that she doesn't have to be an expert to share her expertise. So
That's amazing. Two great examples, fiction and nonfiction. And what I would say to our audience listening, like, we all have these unique, special gifts. And if you have that idea, don't one day wake up and regret wishing you had, whether it's a children's book, whether it's a fiction, scary thriller, or romance. Like, maybe you have some great ideas, or nonfiction. Like, there's a lot of nonfiction coming out that, really is helpful to a lot of people. So there may be, like, I think that's fantastic what you're talking about. So she's sharing her own experiences with prayer and her connection to God.
Mm-hmm. And you
Very
don't,
nice.
and like I just said, that's the takeaway with her book is you don't have to be. And to expand on what you just said, don't wait thinking, but I'm not an expert on being a mom. Yes, you are. If you have kids, you're an expert on being a mom.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to have, my point being, you don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to be a so-called established expert. If you have an experience that you want to share and you figured out a way that works for you, and you really know that it can and will work for at least some segment of the population, then write the book.
Yeah.
Write the book.
Yeah. That's great call out. Really great call out. And so, Christina, like, you've shared some incredible ideas. And regardless of whether you're wanting to write a book or you're thinking about starting a business, like, everything you've shared is, I think, practical, good advice in helping people even identify, like, like we were talking about, if you're in a tough work environment, like, how do you balance that? How do you bring positivity in when there's a lot of toxicity or negativity?
Yeah.
Like, this applies no matter what kind of industry you're in. But I love the examples that you've shared. And I love what you shared about the branding, because I think, like, you're talking my language there, because I so want to see people showing up so fully as to who and how they are. And you're right, not everybody, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. There's how many billion people in this world? It doesn't matter. There will be enough that get excited about you that it's all good.
And not only that, I agree with that so much, and so much so that it transformed my life. When I went from frumpy housewife, getting a divorce, and never wearing makeup and never doing anything, to the complete opposite. And it's not about, you don't have to wear makeup. That's my point, though. You don't have to be skinny. You don't have to be tall. You don't have to have perfect hair. None of that matters, because here's my point. People care less than you think they do about your nose size, about your shape,
Body size,
whatever. The audience, they don't care about that as much as you do. What they care about is, are you a human being that is open, that I can connect with, and that resonates with me and what I am passionate about? And if so, we're good to go, So absolutely, just expanding on what you just said,
Love that.
Share it, and don't be concerned about your physical appearance or that you stutter or that whatever. Just still,
Yeah, listen to us today. We can't even
right,
get the word trilogy out of our mouth.
right. Usually words are fine for me, and
Yeah, me too.
issue, but it's not today. So that's what I would say. There's just like, don't stop worrying about that stuff, because so many authors, especially kind of to tie it in, they don't want to come out from behind their book or their computer screen because it's uncomfortable, and they're like, but I don't, I stutter a little bit. I'm quiet and I'm shy. So own that. Be that person. There are plenty of shy people who will identify with that.
Of course. You're absolutely right. And that's a great role model for people who are more introverted or shy or not comfortable stepping out, because you're letting them know that you can do it in different ways. So yeah, that's a great segue. So tell us, how can people find you?
I make it really easy. So I when I braided, I put it together as the Book Launch Fairy. So if you go to Book Launch Fairy, it doesn't have the V on it, that's my landing page, which will get you to my website. It'll get you a free consultation. It'll get you to my books. It'll get you to my courses, my Etsy shop. Everything you need to know is all at booklaunchfairy.com. Make it really easy.
Okay. And what about, because you were talking about TikTok. So how do people find you on TikTok, Instagram? Are you on LinkedIn, like Facebook? Like,
yes, I'm actively every day on TikTok. That's my biggest. I had a viral, get this, I had a viral account until this year. I had 1.6 million video likes and over 100,000 followers.
Wow.
Then I got locked out because I got a new phone. And TikTok's answer to that is, tough cookies, get a new account.
Oh, no. Really? Oh, TikTok, that's not good.
If you lose your credentials for TikTok, you have to start a new account.
Oh, wow.
For however long we have TikTok, that's there. And it's the book, and it's also Book Launch Fairy. Everything, if you put in Book Launch Fairy on, I'm actively on, I think I'm on everything but Twitter. So I don't like Twitter, but Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all those main ones, Pinterest even, Book Launch Fairy, and you'll find me.
Okay.
So I just want to encourage anybody who could be, listening, the best way to learn and do whatever, it is that you need help with is to, I do free consultations for anyone. It doesn't matter where you are on the journey, whether you just have a nugget of an idea, think you want to write a book, or you halfway through your manuscript, I can help. So.
Awesome. Well, that's what I was going to say. So if you have questions, or maybe there's like something has awakened in you as you've listened to this episode, like reach out to Christina, ask her some questions, right? Like figure out, like, and if you have questions about personal branding, you can reach out to me. So you've got resources is the point. And, don't wake up one day and say, "Oh, I wish I had done that." Just do it. There's no cost.
What if I had? Yeah,
exactly.
I wonder where I'd be now. Don't.
Exactly. Awesome. Christina, thank you so much. Like, your energy is so contagious and you've got such a high vibration. I just love it. So thank you for being here and sharing so much with us today. This has been truly, truly wonderful. So thank you
for me too. I've had a good time.
Good. And our audience, of course, I want to thank you for being here as well. Listen, if this episode has resonated with you and you know someone who's thinking about a book, or they've been talking about something and you go, oh, they'd be great at writing something, share this episode with them. Let them hear what and how they can start the process at least. And if nothing else, just start writing, right? That's a very powerful way to release creativity, release emotions. Like you were talking about that earlier, Christina, like releasing some of that trauma or emotion that's within you. Writing is such a great way to do that. And we're grateful to you for chiming in from 57 countries, and we hope to continue to grow that. So be sure to tag friends and let us know how we're doing. And if there's any topics you would like to hear, let us know that too. We're here for you, and we bring these podcasts to life for you. And if you're curious about learning more about your own leadership, visit the WIL Empowered website. That's willempowered.com, 1L, and take our free leadership quiz. It'll give you a lot of insight as to how you're showing up as a leader. And we'd love to hear from you and support you in any way that we can. So thank you, everyone. And we will look forward to seeing you, hearing you talking to you in the next Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.willempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.